Councillor Rose wish to speak?
We have a number of groups that are seeing themselves delivering our vision and our goals, and with the best will in the world, and these are trusts and they are community groups, but they are self-appointed, and that's why I believe the only fair way for the public to have input as to whether they wish to support this or not is if there was something through the annual plan that said we've got a contestable fund out there. I appreciate the reasons why we went against it, and we keep getting these requests in, and some of them are very worthy requests, and some of them assure us that they are the most deserving people, but the public do not get a chance to actually say, yes, I support that, or don't support it. And I think that is a very important thing, that all of these groups assure us that consultation is extremely important, but they don't think we should consult on funding them. And I believe that this should be an open and transparent process of finding out, is this what the public want their money spent on? So going forward in the future, we either say there's no funding for anyone, or we say if there is funding, then it has to be actually out there for public comment as to whether they support that particular direction.
Seconder.
Briefly, Mr. Chairman, as I say, over many years we've had requests from the Environment Centre, and they're a worthy group and worthy people doing worthy things, but I'm not convinced that we should be funding them as in the way of a grant. And I warm to the suggestion which came from Councillor Curtin that if we are to be supportive, we do so perhaps in buying services that may or may not be available, and staff would pick up on that. But I really think the days of the Regional Council now sort of shoveling out liquor all sorts and bags to all sorts of types of requests have been and gone, and I don't really want to encourage that to happen again. So I'm happy to second this resolution.
Other speakers? Councillor McGregor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I'll support this resolution, but like Councillor Rose says, it's a worthy group doing worthy things, and there's a number of enthusiasts that put their time into this, and they're promoting ideas that might seem a little bit radical, but that's a good thing, that those sort of initiatives are explored, because so every now and again they catch on. But on the other hand, it's difficult to know whether this is a type group of enthusiasts that feels good. That's good on them for that, but I wonder how many of their wider public avail themselves of what they've got to offer, and that I can't answer. It may not be great.
Other speakers? Put that motion, and all those in favour please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Page 12, Environmental Education.
Mr. Chairman, because of the absence of the presenter for the Enviro Schools this morning, I just would like it noted in the officer's response on page 12 that, or in the summary of it, that they did ask for a 10% increase in the council contribution to the cost of running Enviro Schools, which equates to $1,400 in Project 895. Bearing that in mind when you see the recommendation on the screen.
Questions? Councillor Scott.
The time of Pip Green, what percentage of her time goes to Enviro Schools?
Without having checked that recently, I would say probably around 15 to 20%.
So could you put a figure on the economic value of her contribution?
I'd want to be more accurate on that before I did that, but yes, we could. Yep.
Perhaps in the response that might be highlighted.
Are staff happy with the performance of Enviro Schools? Any reason not to think they're doing any reason to think
they're doing a good job? They're the number of schools in the region, they continue to grow that. They have part-time coordinators in both Wairoa and Central Hawke's Bay, as well as one based here in Napier and Hastings. And yes, it continues to receive good support from an increasing number of schools.
Other questions? Councillor Gilbertson.
I'll move that we accept the submission, they get $1,400.
Okay, so that the recommendation acknowledges the support, blah, 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 and makes an increase of $1,400 in the annual plan. Is that exactly what you said? I thought so. Any seconder for that? I'll second that. You wish to speak?
Well, just the job we've been supporting for a long time. I think they're a proven organisation. $1,400 is a huge amount of money, of course, and it's the sort of thing we should consider very, very, very carefully. But my personal view is it's we can go out on a huge limb on this one, and the ratepayers have to suffer the damage, but for a good cause.
As seconder, I support this with a proviso that we still haven't fully delved into what we're contributing to in the form of education, and I'd like staff to consider how we get best bang for buck going forward. Other speakers, sorry. Councillor Curtin.
Well, I think it's dove into, Mr Chair, as opposed to delve into. Putting that aside, this is a bit of a, because it's in the realms of public education, and I know we're in aspects of our work we do support, public transport and the likes, but I am and continue my scepticism that we ought to be doing this in this way. We've got limited involvement now. It's a huge sum, $1,400, and the ratepayer is going to suffer terribly from it. So I'm really concerned that they don't. So I'm going to oppose it.
Fair enough. Other speakers wish to sum up? Oh, sorry, Councillor Rose.
Mr Chairman, I'm going to oppose it too, because I do think that they do get a reasonable funding as it is. They get significant input from the work of our staff member, and I think if a dollar figure was put on that, we would find that the contribution we make is quite generous. They did come to us last year, I think, and seek a 10% increase, which was granted, and I don't know whether it's a good policy for us to sort of be hit for a 10% increase every round. Perhaps we should look at funding an increase every second year. I don't think it's appropriate this year to meet that increase. So happy with the funding as it stands and the work of Pip Green, but I will vote against this resolution.
I really find it absolutely extraordinary that the Chief Executive has the ability to fire $100,000 to rabbit control and Cape kidnappers, which is fine. I personally don't approve of that, but there's $100,000. We've just carried forward a few $1 million worth of expenditure, and here's $1,400 for a proven partner over time who've come to us time again, and in my opinion can be trusted to continue the good work. And we have this debate, and it's just human nature is extraordinary that we'll pontificate over $1,400 and flick on millions. I'll never get used to that, but I repeat, these guys are trusted partners for years. We debated the issue years ago. We've decided they're okay. If they come and ask for $1,400, as you say, if it was someone that just came out of the blue, I'd think no, but I just can't understand why anyone would oppose giving a tiny amount to a trusted partner who are doing, acknowledged to be by staff, do a good job, and an hour over there, and yet blithely fire away $3 million with the drop of a hat. But that's human nature. But so basically, I support this completely.
I'll put that motion in. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Here we go again. Questions in regard to environmental initiatives, page 13. You have a question, Councillor Gilbertson? No? No questions. The recommendation is...
The recommendation, Mr Chairman, is really based on a number of the submissions actually supported some of the work that's already being done. There was a couple of other suggestions which we would, in response, suggest that they perhaps the role of the territorial authorities and just certainly there's nothing in there that really merits a change to the annual plan. I think that's the key point.
Happy to move, Councillor Rose. We have a second to Councillor Gilbertson. You wish to speak? No speakers. I'll put that motion then. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Where are we now? Page 15, Film Hawke's Bay. Moved second. Any speakers?
Very good group, doing some very good work.
Oh, wait,
and
I'm
I was.
sorry. You're moving that. No, I'm not seconding.
Stop speaking.
Do you think you were seconding?
I'm sorry. I'm confused. I thought you was moving that we grant.
15,000.
Yes. Oh, for
Yeah,
sure.
let's have some questions then. Yeah, Councillor Curtin.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, it occurs to me that this is something that Tourism Hawke's Bay should have been involved in. Is there an opportunity for Film Hawke's Bay to go to and get their support from there?
Well, as a director, I would say yes, we'd welcome that discussion. I think there has been previous discussions in answering your question. And I'm not sure of any quantum of any we are partnering on at the moment. But I do agree with you that that is the appropriate place for that discussion to take place.
Another question, really, Mr. Chair, is it's a worthy cause. We'd have to increase support to the tourism budget to support it if we wanted that mechanism. And I wonder whether that's possible. Is it possible to go beyond the rating base for the dollars for HBT if we wanted to increase a quantum into that? Can you answer that?
You could make a separate resolution to that effect, or a specific resolution that you perhaps are approving the funding request, or if you necessary you would like Hawke's Bay Tourism to actually make that final decision, but that you would make provision for that funding request through increasing the grant to, or the rate to that's paid to Tourism Hawke's Bay. You could make that specific resolution.
I'm just trying to get out of being the funder and have other more appropriate people being the funder.
Mr. Chairman, it wouldn't be appropriate to ask Tourism Hawke's Bay to directly fund it without some extra resource, would it? Because they are fully committed.
They are absolutely fully committed. However, the purchasing service type arrangement potentially, cutting across a expose of what Hawke's Bay has to offer, to me, sort of fits in there. And whether that could be massaged into existing budgets, that's something to challenge our CEO of Hawke's Bay Tourism on next meeting, which is in a couple of weeks. But in saying that, if there was a provision made, obviously it would be uptaken if this was to partner.
It keeps things coordinated, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but I agree with Councillor Curtin on the answering on behalf of Hawke's Bay Tourism that that is the appropriate discussion point, not with us. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I'm not. I understand the conversation, but I'm not sure that's what we were asked. My notes say that she was saying that they wanted to go into certain magazines where people look for locations, and they wanted the funds specifically for that. Now, that's economic development in its broader sense. That's not about tourism attraction per se or promotion. That's that wider sense. So if the thought was Tourism Hawke's Bay could ask questions relating to pretty pictures of Hawke's Bay or promoting Hawke's Bay and so on, that's fair enough. But this is about bringing people in who then stay here, buy services here, whether they are food services or locational services and so on. I mean, I know this group reasonably well. And that's a wider picture, which I thought was where Councillor Dick was coming from when he withdrew his seconding in favour of an approval. So it's a more complicated question than simply a tourism one. That's really what I'm saying.
motion on the table. Are you sticking with your motion?
I'm sticking with my motion, Mr. Chairman.
So is there a seconder for that motion? If you second that, well, let's have the discussion.
Mr. Chairman, this comes back again to another very worthy group offering a business development. And while we've had quite a bit of comment, which I've been keeping my mouth shut because it wasn't on the table as a motion, until this is about economic development. It isn't about increasing tourism. It is not aimed at tourism. We have already had discussions with the Tourism Hawke's Bay. We during the presentations we did question where the funding for Business Hawke's Bay was and how that funding was being spent. And I think the appropriate way of funding something like this is through our grant through Business Hawke's Bay. To actually put a grant in here now, even if we put it on top of another budget, is to come off the bottom line. We've heard all the things against having any sort of partnership contestable funding, and then immediately we start considering how to do grants to people who have come in and said, I'd like some funding for my business. There's no doubt about it. They have said they cannot recover the money themselves from the business that comes in. It's part of their charter that they have to provide the service, and I think the proper way for them to set that funding is through our business support, our economic development support, as against a separate funding grant.